Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Great. So today we're going to be tackling Demon Copperhead.
Oh, wow. Barbara Kingsolver.
Yeah, it's been called like a modern-day David Copperfield,
Yeah.
set in Appalachia. But, even if you haven't read Dickens, stick with us.
Right.
We'll break it down, make it super interesting. And who knows, maybe we'll even surprise those of you who have read the book. What do you think?
Sounds good. Yeah. I think one of the things that's so amazing about this book is how Kingsolver takes these huge issues. I mean, poverty, addiction, you name it.
Lack of opportunity.
All that. And she makes it like so personal. You really feel for these characters.
Just true. And she just throws you right in. I mean,
Yeah.
First page, we meet Demon. He's born in a trailer. His mom's struggling with addiction. Rural Virginia.
Tough start.
It's bleak, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that setting is so important.
Right.
It's not just a backdrop. It's like this whole world that she builds, like Dickens did, but it feels so current.
Absolutely. And speaking of names, can we talk about Demon Copperhead? Like, what a name.
Right. It's so clever on like so many levels.
Yeah, break it down for us.
Well, you've got the Copperhead snake, right? Native to Appalachia. So like right away, this kid is tied to this place. But then there's also that sense of danger, right?
No.
Snakes, they can be dangerous. And then demon, come on, that's going to be some foreshadowing, right? This kid's life is not going to be easy.
No, not at all. And those early years are rough, bouncing between homes, neglectful caregivers. Then you've got Stoner, the abusive stepfather.
Yeah, Stoner, he's a tough one. It's like not just the physical abuse, but the emotional scars, they run deep. And it makes those few good people in Demon's life stand out even more,
Like the Peggotts.
Exactly. They're the neighbors.
Yeah.
So kind, so loving.
You give him that little bit of stability, what he really craves.
And it makes you wonder, how do we create more Peggotts in the world? How do we give kids like Demon that safety net?
That's a good question. One Kingsolver seems to be asking too. But even with the Peggotts, things go downhill for Demon. He ends up in foster care at this place called Creaky Farm.
Creaky Farm, more like child labor camp than anything else.
Right. Talk about a broken system.
It's like, it's supposed to protect kids, and then it does the opposite. So messed up. It's like Dickens all over again, in a way.
Chilling thought. And it's not just the systems, right? It's the individual relationships that really shape him. Fast forward, the leader at Creaky Farm.
Okay, yeah, fast forward.
Angus, this really smart, rebellious friend he meets later.
Yeah.
And Dory, his first love. They all leave a mark on him.
Oh, they do. Fast forward, he's such a complex character,
Yeah.
manipulative, dangerous, but there's this part of him that cares about Demon in his own way.
Right.
Messed up, but he gives Demon that sense of family he's looking for.
Yeah, that twisted kind of family. And Angus, she's amazing.
Oh, I love Angus.
She challenges Demon, makes him think differently about the world, shows him he can be more than his past.
It's like she wakes him up intellectually, emotionally.
Totally. And then there's Dory. Their relationship is intense. So much joy and pain all mixed together.
Oh, for sure. You see the power of connection, but also how hard it can be when you're both dealing with so much.
It's a roller coaster, for sure.
And Kingsolver shows how poverty, trauma, all that, it can make relationships so fragile even when there's love.
Right. And that's what makes this book so compelling, right? It's not just about Demon growing up. It's
Yes.
about all these forces that shape lives, especially in these communities that get overlooked.
Exactly. But even with all the darkness, there's this this spark of hope,
Yeah.
Kingsolver shows us how people find ways to survive, to connect, find meaning, even when things are so tough. It's incredible, really. And that resilience is really put to the test as Demon grows up.
No.
I mean, he goes through some really tough stuff, starting with his mom's overdose.
Yeah, that's a turning point for sure. Everything he's been afraid of becomes real.
It's like he has to face the consequences of addiction head on, not just for his mom, but for himself too. And it kind of sets off this chain reaction, pushing him further and further away from any kind of stability.
He ends up running away, right? Trying to find his grandmother. Like this desperate search for connection, someplace to belong.
Exactly. And that search takes him on this crazy journey through the backwoods of Appalachia. And he meets all kinds of people. Some good, some not so good. He spends some time with Coach, this tough but supportive guy who teaches him about hard work discipline,
Yeah, those relationships are so important for him. They show him that there are other ways to live, other paths he can take.
Yeah.
But even with those positive influences, he still struggles. He gets labeled as troubled at school, bullied.
Yeah.
And his relationship with Dory, it gets even more complicated.
That's where you see how Kingsolver really digs into the whole issue of social perception. How people judge Demon based on his circumstances, based on labels instead of who he really is. It's heartbreaking to see how much that affects him.
And then there's the football injury. That seems like a huge turning point for him, both physically and emotionally.
Totally. The injury, not only does it limit him physically, but it also leads to painkillers. And that's where the opioid crisis, which has been kind of lurking in the background the whole time, really takes center stage.
It's a reminder that addiction can happen to anyone, no matter who you are or where you come from. And the way Kingsolver describes Demon's struggle, it's so raw, so honest, you can't look away.
Exactly. She captures that slippery slope of addiction, how it starts with relief, but ends up taking over your whole life.
As through it all,
Yeah.
you see glimpses of Demon's artistic talent.
Right.
The way he finds comfort in drawing, creating his own world on paper. It's like an escape,
Yeah.
but also a way for him to process everything he's going through.
Art becomes this lifeline for him, a way to express what he can't put into words, and it hints at this deeper strength inside him, this ability to find beauty and meaning, even in the darkest times.
But then he reconnects with Fast Forward, who's back in Lee County. But now he's deep into the drug trade. Talk about a dangerous path.
It's dangerous, but also familiar for Demon, and that's what makes it so tempting. Fast Forward represents that pull of the past, the desire to belong, even if it means making terrible choices.
And then tragedy strikes. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read the book, but it's a loss that completely shatters Demon's world.
It is. And it forces him to confront his own mortality, the fragility of life, the weight of his decisions. It's a real moment of reckoning for him.
He hits rock bottom, battling addiction, struggling to survive, facing the harsh realities of a world that seems determined to break him. It's bleak, but also incredibly powerful.
Kingsolver doesn't sugarcoat anything.
Yeah.
She shows us the brutal truth of Demon's experience. She makes us confront the systemic failures that contribute to addiction and poverty, the ways in which society can marginalize and dehumanize people who are struggling. But even in those darkest moments, there are these glimmers of hope.
Right, like he finds comfort in art and the support of people he wouldn't expect, and in those moments of human connection that remind him he's worthy.
Exactly. And those moments are so important. They show us that even when things seem impossible, the human spirit can endure, and that there's always a chance for redemption, no matter how far down you've fallen.
That's when you start to see him take control,
Yeah.
like putting the pieces back together.
It's not like a sudden, miracle. It's more like this gradual climb.
One step at a time.
Exactly. And Kingsolver makes it feel so real. Like there are setbacks, doubts,
Yeah.
despair, but you also feel this growing strength in him, this refusal to be defined by what he's been through.
He finds support in a sober living community, reconnects with June.
June, yeah, she's important.
She is. And of course he keeps drawing.
And that's key, right? Art becomes more than just an outlet. It's how he reclaims his story, shares it with the world.
It's powerful. And then he teams up with Tommy, that friend from Creaky Farm, remember him?
Oh, yeah.
And they create this graphic novel exposing all the stuff they saw, the dark side of things.
That collaboration is so meaningful. Healing, finding strength together. But it's also about using art to make a difference, Speaking truth to power. Giving a voice to those who don't have one.
And that kind of leads to his decision to go back to Lee County,
Yeah.
to face his past head on.
That return is huge, symbolic of his whole journey. He goes back to those places that still hold so much pain. The Peggott's house, Devil's bathtub, even sees Emmy again, Fast Forward's ex. She's struggling too. It's about acknowledging what happened, but also seeing how much he's grown.
Full circle, in a way. And he sees Angus again, too. She's back in Lee County with his new sense of purpose.
I love that. Demon and Angus, they both show different kinds of resilience. She chooses to embrace her roots, use her smarts, her heart to make things better. It's such a contrast to Demon's initial need to escape.
In that last scene, they walk away from Lee County together. There's a sense of hope there, like they can build their own future, even with the past still weighing on them.
It's such a powerful image, walking away, but carrying those stories with them. It makes you believe that even though these cycles of poverty, addiction, they can feel impossible to break, there are people who do it, who find new ways to heal, to start over.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Demon Copperhead, what are your final thoughts? What do you want listeners to take away?
I think this book reminds us that even when things are really, really tough, hope exists. It's about resilience, connection, and the power of art to turn pain into something meaningful. Kingsolver gives us a story that's both heartbreaking and ultimately hopeful. She challenges us to see past labels, to see the humanity in everyone, especially those who are often pushed aside. I hope it leaves people feeling more empathy, understanding the complexities of poverty and addiction, and believing that even in the darkest corners, light can break through.
Beautifully put. It's a story that stays with you. Makes you think about the world, the systems we live in. How can we create more Peggets? Support those struggling with addiction. Break those cycles of poverty and trauma. These are the questions Kingsolver leaves us with. Questions worth thinking about long after the last page is turned. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Demon Copperhead. We hope you found it insightful, engaging, maybe even made you think a little bit. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and keep talking about these important issues.